Imagine the Monaco Grand Prix, but quieter, a little bit easier to get about, a lot cheaper. The cars you grew up watching on the proper Monaco circuit, €150 for 3 days racing at an iconic circuit with full paddock access. The question isn't whether Formula One should keep Monaco, it's probably whether Monaco should keep Formula One.
That's Colin Johnston, a motorsport historian and the writer behind Mercedes Formula One history. I'm Dianne Bortoletto, and this week, Colin shows us how to do Monaco, Goodwood, and the great old European races the way an independent traveller can. If you love Formula One and if you love travel, you're going to love this episode. Welcome back to Away We Go podcast.
Are you ready?
It's lights out and away we go!
Let's do it.
Hello and welcome back to Away We Go podcast, a Formula One podcast that goes beyond the track limits to talk about travel and lifestyle surrounding the sport. My name's Dianne Bortoletto and I've got a very special episode for you today. I'm joined by Colin Johnston, who is a motorsport historian, a Formula One history expert. He's been a fan of Formula One for 40 odd years. He's done work with Mercedes Formula One team. He's been involved in documentaries. I'm really looking forward to this chat. Welcome to the show, Colin.
Hi Diane, how are you? That's a great introduction. Sounds like a cool guy.
I forgot to say that you're a writer as well, like a journalist. You do all sorts of things. So where to start? Goodness, tell us how it all started. Let's go back 40 years. What made you fall in love with motorsport and Formula One?
Well, I suppose we've all got our origin stories and we all know that moment. It's funny because I've been following the sport really actively since, 1982? But this year is 50 years since I first saw a Grand Prix on TV. And at my grandmother's house, the British Grand Prix 1976, and the big crash at the start with James Hunt's McLaren goes up in the air. So that's my first memory of racing cars and all that there. But yeah, in the early 80s, discovering Formula One on TV in that great era. And also here, I'm in Northern Ireland, so there was lots of rallying and there was motorbike road racing and all sorts of things going on here as well. Probably most of the people who watch your podcast can relate. Now it just captures your attention and you just want more of it. It's addictive, isn't it?
100% addictive, yeah. I used to say once you get a sniff of that high octane fuel, you just want more and more. So how did you turn your passion then into a career?
It still feels like a passion project. I'm still very pleasantly surprised that people want to professionally get me to do this stuff because in a sense, I'm doing what I've done for decades now. Being a Gen Xer, I grew up with the early days of the internet. And as a motorsport fan, back in those early days of the forums and the chat rooms and all that there, I was effectively doing what I'm doing now, talking about motorsport history, sharing facts, learning from other people, telling stories, correcting things, telling the big tales. So I've always loved doing that, just because I've always loved just the minutiae and the stories and the people around motorsport. So it's come off the back of that. And in more recent times, of this last 10, 12 years, social media has been the big thing. And Twitter was so very big for me when it was good. Through that there, sort of, I caught, people's eye and just doing different things. I was partially encouraged and also partially thinking myself that I should do something more formal. And that's where my website came from, because I found I was telling the same stories over and over again. I was busting the same myths again and again, 250 characters at a time on Twitter. And I thought I probably should tell these stories properly and set them down somewhere. Do it once, do it well, and have something to refer to. And off the back of that there, I'm very, very thankful that other people have taken an interest and other people wanted to get on board with that and use my skills to help tell their stories. And within this last few years then, I've been in touch with Mercedes F1 and they got in touch with me, about 5 years ago maybe was the first conversation. After this last 2.5, 3 years, I've been writing long form history pieces and some shorter things as well for the Mercedes F1 website, looking into their history, telling stories, helping out a wee bit of historical context to things that are happening today. So yeah, it's really interesting, but it's great fun. Because that's what it comes back to. We're all fans, and no matter what branch of motorsport we're involved in, and you see that in the sport as well, people with very important titles and high profiles. It comes back to the fact they just really love motor racing.
Yeah. And we should say that your website is racingdaydreams.com. I'll put a link in the show notes, of course, but anyone listening, you want to check out Colin's work, that's where you head.
Super. Thanks, Di.
Colin, I feel like you are the dictionary version of find what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. How fortunate. That just sounds like best job in the universe, or best way to work in the universe.
I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful for it. And it's come off the back as well. I was involved in the music industry for quite a while as well, but as a musician and as a business owner. And I found a lot of sort of skills and different things pass back and forth between the two things in terms of the storytelling and whatnot. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing to be involved with. And to be honest, and the website is proof of that, even if somebody wasn't paying me to do it, I'd still be doing it anyway. I'd still be telling stories. And that's the beauty of having my own website, because I can work for Mercedes or whoever else. But on my own website, I can indulge my whims and tell things in a more whimsical way or more convoluted way without an editor looking over my shoulder.
Exactly. You write what you want, how you want, without somebody telling you what you have to write. I totally can appreciate where you're coming from. And you've been fortunate enough to go to lots of different races. I really want to talk to you about, firstly, I know that you were in Monza in 2024. Let's talk about
Yes.
that. The
Yes.
iconic, the Monza that every single Ferrari fan wishes they were at, because that's the one that Charles Leclerc won, and that vision of the Tifosi underneath the podium. Wow. Did you actually, where were you? Were you on the media side or were you on the fan side? Or just tell us about that whole experience.
I had the reverse angle to that because I was in the paddock and I hadn't made my way through. But what there was, and it's telling the end of the story first in a way, Charles had won and I knew what the scene was going to be out there on that pit straight, because we've all seen it so many times before. Even when a non-Ferrari driver wins, those scenes are epic on the pit straight when everybody comes down to the podium. I'd watched the race in hospitality and I jumped out and I was in the paddock, and all you could hear on the other side of the garage, it was like a monster on the other side of the garage, just the sound of these people coming down the pit straight to the podium. I was like, I don't know what's on the other side of those buildings, but it sounds really scary. It was quite the scene. And the beauty then of the reverse angle is I didn't catch a glimpse of the podium, but you see Charles's guy then walking back through the paddock, carrying the helmet and hands device, the empty champagne bottle and the trophy, and walking into Ferrari hospitality, and you think, that's really cool. I'm blessed to see things like that. That's a really cool thing.
So cool. Yeah, so cool. Going to Monza, I've been to Milan lots of times, but never to the Monza Grand Prix. And it's very high on my list. That was the year I was watching that on TV, just going, oh my God, I'd give my right arm to be there. That just looked so absolutely fabulous, and just the whole emotion. And even seeing the Sky Sports commentators take selfies from the podium with the sea of Tifosi behind them. I still remember that, thinking, God, even they're blown away by it. They're at races every single week or every second week, 24 times a year. So for them to be captured by it, yeah, I thought that's really special. Just about as special as last weekend watching Lewis Hamilton take his first win for Ferrari. Yeah. Can you tell I'm a Ferrari fan? Yeah.
Well,
I still wondering.
You as Tifosi, the fans last week, and then you're talking about Monza last year. I was there. The beauty of it is, and I would urge anybody who has motor racing in their soul, go to Monza, because especially if you're in and around Europe somewhere, it's so accessible. You do budget flights into Bergamo and pick up a rental Panda, and just like I did, independent traveler, just follow your nose, follow your sat nav, and just make it happen. Just get out there and do it. But the Tifosi, when you're in amongst them, it's amazing, because I had both sides of the coin on my weekend. I was very fortunate that my friends at Mercedes invited me in for the Sunday to watch the race, but I had Friday and Saturday as on a general admission ticket in amongst the Tifosi in Monza Royal Park, and they're magnificent. They reminded me of the Irish rally fans. There was the sort of that sense of camaraderie, and everybody arrives with the picnic and the step ladder and the deck chairs, and everybody is there just to have the best time, and they're passionate and sarcastic, and they're just all the things you want great fans to be. So yep, I had Friday and Saturday in amongst the Tifosi, but I must admit, in 35-degree heat, I was glad of hospitality on the Sunday because
Yeah, I can
because
imagine.
this old man was feeling it. Was glad of the aircon.
No, I can appreciate that. My gosh. But you've also been to the Monaco Historiques more than once, and you were there only a couple of months ago. Just tell us what the experience was like there.
It's a super event. It's a super event. First of all, the headline is, as it sounds, the Monaco Grand Prix Historique is the historic cars version of the Monaco Grand Prix, and is held every 2 years. And this year, the way it fell, Goodwood Members Meeting was on one week, and the very next weekend was Monaco Historic. So I did the big trip over from Belfast in Northern Ireland here, and did Goodwood in the south of England, and then did Monaco. There are cars from before the first race in 1929 up until 1985. So you're into the turbo Grand Prix cars that were after I started watching it. So imagine your dream of the Monaco Grand Prix. Imagine the Monaco Grand Prix, but being a little bit quieter, a little bit easier to get about, being a lot cheaper, like multiple times less expensive to do. And, well, for my generation at least, the cars you grew up watching and all the cars you read about in history books on the proper Monaco circuit being driven pretty hard. The field is mixed. The fields are mixed. But at the front of these races, the guys are really going for it. So it's a real deal. And a paddock that is entirely open. So you can, so if your Monaco dream isn't sitting on a yacht drinking champagne, but is smelling petrol, talking to racing drivers, standing at Sainte Dévote and watching the cars that far away from you, then Monaco Historic is the place to go.
I said that it was accessible. It's amazing. That's another reason to go, isn't it? Like just another reason to put it on your list. Does the marina attract the super yachts like the Grand Prix, or is it much quieter, or that part just isn't activated?
I would go to the south of France once or twice a year, off and on. So I see Monaco a few different times as I pass through, and it would be much closer to non-race times perhaps. The harbour is busy and there's plenty of big boats and fancy yachts for you to walk around the harbour and go, oh, that's lovely, and have a nice day out looking at big yachts. But it's not that same rammed thing, and the same for the town itself in terms of people who are there. It's not that rammed experience. This year, especially on social media, at the proper Monaco Grand Prix, I saw some crazy pictures of crowds in the streets and crowds at Nice train station queuing, and it all looked a bit frantic, and it's not that at all. But it really has that Monaco experience. And as I say, it's because it's a wee bit quieter and it's the older cars, it's kind of your rose-tinted memory of what Monaco would be and could be and should be, rather than being a frantic, huge sporting event that just feels like stress.
Yeah, and those who've got the most money have the best time. That's a little bit how the Monaco Grand Prix seems now. I went to the Monaco Grand Prix 12 years ago now. Yeah, and it was almost on a whim. I was in Italy for a work thing that fell through at the last minute, and I said to my husband, oh, the Monaco Grand Prix is on in 2 weeks. Shall we go to that? And he said, oh yeah, why not? He was a lukewarm Formula One fan back then, right? So he was like, yeah, sure. And so I just got online, found some grandstand tickets opposite the marina that was so expensive. But I think it was just the norm. It was just that's how much Monaco cost on the Sunday. But there were still tickets available. Never in a million years would that happen in this day and age with the surge in popularity of Formula One. I bought 2 tickets, didn't tell him how much they cost till afterwards, and we had the best day, and it was fabulous. And like you, we stayed in the south of France in Nice. We caught the train into Monaco. It was all very easy to do, crowds, but not just like you would at any normal event. It didn't ruin the experience. And right underneath our grandstand, just down 2 flights of stairs, was a little Heineken bar. Not once did I have to wait for a beer, not once. So we just sat there drinking beers in the sun, looking at the super yachts, watching Daniel Ricciardo finish second. It was the best day out. Yeah.
I think people have an idea about Monaco as well in terms of in terms of expense, and you're saying about sort of going down to the stand and grabbing a couple of beers or whatever, I find an experience going for the Grand Prix events and also visiting Monaco generally just now and again if I'm in the south of France. Monaco can't be as expensive or as affordable as you want it to be.
Exactly.
It's no worse than anywhere else along that coast. And because people are sitting on a yacht drinking champagne, doesn't mean that you can't go to the supermarket and buy a really great sandwich and a can of Coke. So Monaco can be what you want it to be. And you were saying about picking up tickets. Well, the good thing about that, first of all, is your husband would have known the Monaco Grand Prix, so even non-fans know that event, and that's why it's so important to the sport, and it's such an accessible thing, it's such a way in for people, because people who don't know Norris from Verstappen know the Monaco Grand Prix.
Exactly.
I don't know what you paid 12 years ago, but to give your listeners some context, Monaco Historiques is a 3-day event. The Friday is open to everybody. Free.
Wow.
Free.
How amazing.
Saturday, the tickets are €50 for a grandstand seat and paddock access. The Sunday race day is €100.
That's crazy.
So for 3 days motor racing in a grandstand seat of your choosing when you book it, and Friday when it's free, you can roam about and sit wherever you want. €150 for 3 days racing at an iconic circuit with full paddock access. Saturday I sat at Sainte Dévote corner on the inside. Picked the best seat in the place, view of the little church, just iconic.
Wow.
Saw everybody racing through Sainte Dévote, looked over my corner, watched them coming through to back. And Sunday I was on the exit of the swimming pool looking towards Rascasse. The best seats on the most iconic circuit. And relatively speaking, it's for nothing compared to, not even compared to Formula One, but just compared to sporting events generally nowadays.
Yeah, well, look, 12 years ago, the Monaco Grand Prix for a Sunday-only grandstand seat was in euro, probably about €550 at that time. It was about 750 Australian dollars, so maybe €500 at that time each for Sunday only. And at the time, actually to this day, it's the most expensive ticket I've ever bought for anything, but it was a once in a lifetime.
Has to be done.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm so glad we did.
I was going to say as well, so many people, and it happens on social media, and a lot of the magazine accounts are to blame for it as well, because they're looking clicks, and the questions asked every year, Monaco, should it stay on the calendar? Monaco, what do you think? And it's people agitating to get interactions, but the question is still there. And I find, in my experience, people who have been there and seen it completely get it. And I always got it as a kid. I always just loved the place and loved the spectacle of it on TV from 1982. Well, from 1982, a crazy race in 1982. It was maybe one of the best races I've seen in 45 years. But I think people who see the place and see it happening in the place, it can't fail to realise that this has to stay. This is a unique thing. And the question isn't whether Formula One should keep Monaco. It's probably whether Monaco should keep Formula One, because it is such a huge brand, and it has a much bigger history, and it has this huge heritage. It's a really special place. But I would urge people to check out the historic event. It happens every 2 years, and if
So accessible.
you like the Monaco Grand Prix and as you said, on the south of France there, the trains and the trams in Nice, everything works so well. Previously, I stayed in Nice, which super city. I love Nice. Nice is great. This time, I chose to stay down at Menton, right on the Italian border, which is just 2 or 3 stops down the train line from Monte Carlo station. And what was it? Menton to Monte Carlo train return, €7.80. Return, 10-minute train ride from my hotel, takes you into Monte Carlo station. You go out the door and down the steps, and you're at Sainte Dévote Church on the circuit. You step out of the train station into, if you know motor racing, you step into the most iconic place. You go, wow, Monaco Grand Prix. And it's so easy, so easy.
And that's the thing about Monaco, right? The train station really is right in the centre. I remember walking out from the train thinking, we've got to find the Monaco Automobile office to pick up our tickets, because that's where our Grand Prix tickets were. And walked out of the train station and went, oh, it's right there. can see the sign from the train. I thought, oh, that's easy. And that was the experience of the whole weekend. Everything was just really easy. Look, I'm sure it's a little different now with, like I said, with the popularity of the sport and just how busy it is. But going back to the historics, so do the cars actually, do they race? Is there trophies or is it just display cruising?
They race. They race. There's 5 or 6 different categories of racing. Cars from different eras, almost all Grand Prix cars, and there's one race for sports cars because for 1 year the Monte Carlo race was held for sports cars in 1952, so they have a sports car race from that era as well. But yes, they do race. It's, if you're around historic racing, there's a lot of familiar faces, familiar cars, guys you'll see at Goodwood and other places. Friday's free practice, Saturday is qualifying, Sunday is the racing, and there's something very nice about that. I'm a big fan of Goodwood as well. And as I said, I was at Goodwood Members Meeting the week before. And Goodwood is amazing. And again, everybody should go to Goodwood. But over and above the racing at Goodwood, they curate everything so well. The presentation, the branding, all the small details, how they curate the entry lists. Goodwood is a fantastic experience. What I like about Monaco is it feels much more like a regular race meeting. The circuit, the location, and the cars are the star. But in format, it could be mini racing. You know, it's just a straight ahead race meeting. It just happens to be the most exceptional cars in the perfect location. The level of drivers perhaps varies through the fields. But at the front end of these races, there is some serious racing. One race I love for the 1.5 litre Grand Prix car from the early 1960s. It's only 10 laps instead of 100 laps like it would have been back in the day. But for 10 laps, you've got 2 Jimmy Clark Lotuses and the flat 12 1.5 litre Ferrari going for it. Going for it for 10 laps around. And you can hear them all around the bay. And, you know, if you squint or you have your sunnies on, that could be Lorenzo Bandini going through Sainte Dévote corner. It feels like the real thing because it is the real thing. So yeah, great racing and good people. Lovely open paddock.
Every couple of years when I see it come up on the radar, it's coming up, like, oh, yes, it's on my list. I would love to go to the historics. What other events have you been to that have just made a lasting impression?
I'm a big fan of Goodwood. I would go to Goodwood Members Meeting almost every year. And I think with Goodwood and all Goodwood's events, I think it's the surprise and delight of Goodwood. As I say, they curate things so well. So you think you're going to members meeting and this is the list of the races. And then you turn a corner. This year they celebrated 1976 and the James Hunt and Niki Lauda rivalry. You turn a corner at Goodwood Circuit and all of a sudden there's a bar set up and the theme is Ibiza in 1976 and it's a James Hunt themed bar. And James Hunt's actually Austin A35 is parked outside with a sign saying parking reserved Mr. J Hunt. And there's all the party people. And so things like, you know, just blow your mind that people have this creativity and have the budget and have the time to make these amazing things happen. So a big fan of Goodwood. So, and again, anybody in and around Europe, I would urge them to do some of the Goodwood events because they're so great. I would urge people to find their local motorsport as well, because the settings are wonderful. Goodwood is amazing. Monaco is amazing. But what makes those events and those long, happy weekends great are the people that you meet and the people that you come across. And that's available at all levels of motorsport. It's something that comes back to my writing and storytelling as well, I think. That the people don't change and people are the same everywhere. And the people around this sport that we love are generally good, happy people doing it for good reasons. And that's just, it's great to say hello to people.
Yeah, I work on a couple of local motorsport events here in Western Australia. The biggest one is a 4-day tarmac rally called Tarmac West. And it just astounds me that they're competing against each other. But one car might have an issue and they'll need a certain part that they don't have. And another team will just give it to them. Or another team will lend them mechanics to help fix an issue. And the camaraderie between the drivers, the crew, the officials, all the volunteers that give up their time to work on those events is what makes the motorsport community something really special. Yes, I'll second that. Anybody listening, if you love to get a fix of high octane fuel, yeah, check out your local motorsport events. And if you actually would like to work in motorsport, they're a great place to start as well. They're always looking for officials and volunteers to assist. Just a really lovely community to be a part of.
Absolutely. And you're saying about tarmac rallying. I love tarmac rallying, being from Ireland, of course. And exactly 25 years ago, I was marshalling on tarmac rallies over here as a fantastic way to get close to the sport. No experience required, only enthusiasm and doing what you're told and staying safe. But it's a great way to get involved with the sport. I get closer than the paying fans and meet people, and make connections. And of course, now we're blessed as well with digital connections as well nowadays. So, 25 years ago when I was rallying, you met somebody, you maybe didn't see them for another 6 months. Nowadays, you meet people, you say hello, you're fast friends, you're in the WhatsApp group, and it's wonderful. It's such a great thing nowadays.
Yeah, and like usually if you are marshalling or a volunteer, there's training provided, which can always lead to other places. I'm betting that not one person in the FIA has not done their time doing some sort of volunteering in their youth or younger days, should I say. Yes. All right. Now, your work writing about motorsport history, tell us about some of your favourite stories that you've discovered or written about.
I love so much. I don't know where to start.
Your favourite child, Colin.
Exactly. And it comes back to what I was saying about being about people. If there's a theme going through what I do, and it's something that I'd be keen to pick up with in my work with Mercedes as well, is that people don't change. The cars change, the surroundings change, but people don't change. And I'm always really keen, if I'm writing about 1955 or 1901, I'm always very keen to show that people went through the same things. And in that way, sometimes what I do is a bit of myth busting, but I think what I'm trying to do is say people in and around motorsport face the same challenges as they do today, generally overcame them in the same way, even if the tools were different. I did a long piece for Mercedes a couple of years ago about their return to Grand Prix racing in 1954, which was Mercedes-Benz entering Formula One for the first time, having had all this Grand Prix history for the previous 50 years. And it was a great honour to be able to do that on the official channels. People look back in history and say Mercedes were a bit of a steamroller, that Mercedes sort of arrive in Grand Prix racing at certain times during the century, turn up, win almost everything and go away again, as if it's sort of preordained or they had some sort of magical powers or something. And in telling that story, I was able to show how much hard work goes into it, how close they came to technical disaster, how on the edge the whole thing. And for people just looking back at a list of race results on Wikipedia going, oh yeah, Mercedes won everything. They nearly didn't win anything.
Right.
Just like today, it's all on edge. Everybody's pushing for developments. Everybody's managing cars. So I love those stories that sort of hopefully inform people that motor racing has always been about the same thing. It's been about exceptional people working bloody hard to try and win motor races. And
What about the safety of the sport? Because the safety of Formula One has improved out of sight in the last 10 years, 15 years. Before that, it wasn't that uncommon. I don't want to say uncommon. It wasn't standard, but drivers would die. There would be fatalities and there was a spate there where it did feel quite common. I'm talking, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago. I'm sure drivers back then went into races thinking, this could be my last day. Or they probably don't have that thought in their head. They'd never push if they did. But that was the reality. Whereas these days, drivers like Romain Grosjean walk out of that firebomb and other crazy accidents where you think, oh my God, how have they not only survived, just walked out and been okay? Do you think that the mentality has changed, because safety has improved?
I think generations have changed. I think the attitudes too, not only amongst the drivers, but amongst society to accepting this danger has waxed and waned over this last century and a quarter, just through what society went through in terms of conflict and recovery and things like that. So people, drivers included, were much more accepting of danger in certain generations than perhaps they are now. And, to qualify anything, I may go on to say everything today is wonderful and amazing about the safety. It's remarkable and mind-blowing, as you say, because I grew up in the 80s, and even then, things happened which were awful.
Yeah.
I have this nagging feeling that something's lost through it, which sounds a terrible thing to say, and it doesn't sound like a right thing to say. But I think with safety comes,
The stakes
Yes.
were the highest that any stakes could be in any sport, literally life and death. So I do understand what you're saying there, and it is hard to articulate.
if you lock wheels, you might be dead. So you couldn't be a young Max Verstappen type in 1962.
No,
Because
yes,
you might be one of those ones. There was a period in Formula One where every month for a few months a driver died at a Grand Prix.
yeah, awful.
So yeah, absolutely awful. So the safety has changed incredibly, and I think probably the biggest difference initially was the drive to make circuits much more safe. It's a product of the times. It's a product of the times. People's attitudes, the technology, and they were where they were, and they accepted the situation that they were in. But yeah, but it's a different world. It's a world now where people go, I'm going to put my 6-year-old son or daughter in a go-kart because I want them to be a racing driver. Versus,
Whereas no parent back then
years
would.
ago, yes. Even if it was available, nobody would want, it's, crazy men.
Yeah, I did once have a racing car driver say to me, they said, Di, if it wasn't dangerous, none of us would do it. And that line has stuck with me for decades. And I thought, yeah, because that's what makes any risk-taking adventure thrilling, isn't it? Whether you're bungee jumping or whether you're driving at breakneck speed around corners that have no barriers, whatever it may be, that element of danger is often what gives you the thrill, gets the adrenaline going.
Stirling Moss used to have a line. He used to say, you look at a tightrope walker and you think, I could never do that. But if the tightrope was 2 feet off the ground, you'd give it a go. It's the danger that's the thrill for the participant and also for the spectators as well.
Yes.
Because nowadays we're lucky. Somebody hits a barrier at Monaco, takes a wheel off, they're out of the race. It's a different sort of thrill that people are looking for nowadays. But you need to have some sort of sense of danger, if not physical or mortal danger, but you do need to have some sort of sense that there's something on the line, something to be lost. And I think the parameters of that have changed.
Yes, like every story needs stakes, doesn't it? If there's nothing to be lost, if there's no tension, then the story doesn't always land or isn't as exciting. So you need something to play for, something to lose.
Absolutely.
Oh, Colin, before we dive into the final three, is there anything else that you would like to chat about?
Oh, goodness. Anything else I'd like to chat about? Coming as sort of a motorsport history guy, I would just love to urge more people to engage with the sports history and find it for themselves, because I find the sport engages with its history on social media channels and whatnot in a very superficial way nowadays quite often. So I would say to fans like I did, it's a wonderful world now with digital connectivity and so many resources at our fingertips. If you like motor racing, if you have a favourite team or a favourite driver or a favourite race series, dive into the history. Dive into the history and find the real stories and find the real people, because I bet you if you're a Ferrari fan today, I bet you will love to read about Ascari. I bet you won't believe what you read about Tazio Nuvolari in the 1930s racing for Scuderia Ferrari. It will blow your mind.
I don't know, so I will have to look that up. Yes.
Nuvolari did an incredible thing. We're talking about danger and risk. I was going to say Nuvolari raced like his car was on fire. Nuvolari continued racing with his car on fire. So there are big stories and big characters for our sports history. And you might just find that you find something that you like even more than Formula One in 2026.
Yeah, great. That's a lovely place to wrap our chat up, but not before we dive into the final three, which is the three questions we ask all of our guests that come on Away We Go podcast. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. If you could go to any Formula One race, whether it's on the current calendar or a previous calendar, which Formula One race would you choose to go to and why?
There's very few I have been to. So many I haven't been to. But I keep going back to classic races. My first thought was I would go to Spa. I haven't been to Spa-Francorchamps yet, but I would save Spa-Francorchamps for historic racing or sports cars because Formula One hasn't done a very good job recently in Spa-Francorchamps. Formula One surprisingly is surprised by rain, which seems to be a new concept to Formula One, which is a bit sad. So the next race on the calendar is Austrian Grand Prix. I would love to go to the Austrian Grand Prix, which for me, it is still the Österreich-Ring. And that would fit the bill perfectly because I think it's a beautiful place. It's in a natural bowl in the mountains. It's fast. It's a great place for Formula One today, but there's lots of history as well. I could walk about and kick old bits of tarmac and kick stones and look where the old track went to. I'll go to Austria.
Austria, yeah. I have heard that they have a pop-up, not a pop-up hotel, but camping setup, but you can get hotel services in your tent. So room service and other things, which is something different. Good answer. I don't think anybody has said the Austrian Grand Prix on the podcast before. So
Cool.
yes,
Cool.
Good answer.
I believe that the general admission ticket is really good there as well. I've read that general admission, because of it being a natural bowl, it's really good viewing points. So that's another for a budget-minded independent traveller like me who's buying a plane ticket and a race ticket. That sounds good to me.
Question 2. Which Formula One destination would you choose to go to for a holiday with no racing on during a non-race week?
I would nip back in time because I love Italy. It's a lovely excuse to go to the Adriatic coast.
Tick of approval.
Hooray from the Italian diaspora in the other window there.
Yeah.
There was a one-off in terms of Formula One.
San Marino.
No.
No. Oh, where are you talking?
Pescara.
Oh, yes, right. Of
Pescara.
course.
Yes, sort of. Yep, not quite down as far as Bari, but on the Adriatic coast, Pescara. And Pescara had motor racing for 30 years, but just once it had a World Championship Grand Prix. It was much more famous than this one World Championship Grand Prix makes it out to be, but it was one of the big destinations in Italy for Grand Prix racing through the 1920s and 1930s. Enzo Ferrari won his last race for Alfa Romeo at the Coppa Acerbo race in Pescara in 1924, I think. Somebody will fact check me. So a fantastic place. It was a road race, a big, roughly triangular course, went up into the mountains, through the villages, round back behind the mountain, all the way down to the coast, and big straight into town, into Pescara. So I think, and also it was on the route of the Mille for many, many, many years. So I don't know, so I'd fly into Bologna or somewhere and drive down, and I would be driving down the Mille route along the Adriatic coast, and I would go to Pescara, and it's a cool seaside resort. It'll be full of locals and it'll be buzzing. So yeah,
Listeners, what the
Pescara was
Mille
me all right.
Yeah, just tell our listeners what the Mille meant. I never say it. You should.
The Mille, 1,000 miles.
Me, of all people, wouldn't be able to say that. But yes, anyway, 1,000 miles, it's exactly what it translates to.
1,000 miles. Created in the 1920s, it was a sports car race, which lives on today as a classic reliability trial stroke rolling museum stroke joyful celebration of European motorsport. It was a fearsome race. It was a non-stop 1,000-mile race that went round most of Italy, called 1,000 miles, even though they worked in kilometres because they wanted to evoke that sort of Roman passion of 1,000 miles around Italy. And it was responsible for some of the greatest races and the biggest stories in the history of our sport. I was lucky to write the story for Mercedes-Benz last year, retelling the story of their win there in 1955. And the editor gave it the title of The Greatest Road Race, and I think he's absolutely right. It was maybe the most iconic sports car race there has ever been. And famously, Stirling Moss and his navigator, the great journalist Dennis Jenkinson, on a Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR, did this 1,000 miles non-stop. They stopped for fuel twice, that was it. And they did it just under 100 mile an hour average speed. And it was the fastest this race was ever won. The Miglia is the icon of sports car racing.
Wow.
So it still has a huge draw. And it, as I said, lives on as this wonderful celebration. normally over sort of 4 or 5 days now.
I think normal people can follow it as well, can't they? It's not just for
Yep.
racing cars, yes. When did it stop being competitive? Do you remember?
It stopped in 1957. There was, things were getting too fast, and there was a terrible accident. Actually, I have a wee piece on my website. I visited the memorial for the big accident that meant that it had to stop. It would have been obscene for it to have continued. So it finished in 1957 as a competitive event. And actually, folks, your viewers may have seen the Ferrari movie from a couple of years ago, the Michael Mann Ferrari movie. And a lot of it is based around the story of the Miglia and that last Miglia. It's a bit overblown. It's a bit much, and it's a bit false looking in some places.
Hollywood overblowing something? Gosh, who would have thought?
But 1957 was the conclusion to it, and it had meant that victory by Stirling Moss for Mercedes-Benz in 1955, Stirling Moss and Dennis Jenkinson, remains the fastest ever Miglia, the fastest speed it was ever won at. Yeah, quite the event.
Yeah, it certainly sounds fantastic. All right, our third question, Colin. Which Formula One driver, dead or alive, would you choose to holiday with, and why?
You sent me this question and I laughed because I thought I could have a dead Formula One driver be like Weekend at Bernie's, propping somebody up. Sorry, I took the question too literally. Formula One driver, which Formula One driver would I take on holiday with? I'd look back in time because I thought, I don't mean to be unkind, but today's crop, lovely, talented guys that they are. Do you want the company of a 25-year-old who for 20 years has been focused on driving racing cars and nothing else? Your conversation rate will run out. Now that is too unkind, but you get my general gist. Yeah. I look back in time and I thought who would be good company on holiday. I first of all thought of John Fitch. John Cooper Fitch was an American racing driver. He's mostly a sports car driver, but he raced for Mercedes in the 50s and he did a couple of Formula One Grand Prix as well. I first thought of him because he was an incredibly erudite man who had been an aviator during the Second World War, first man ever to shoot down a jet fighter, had then gone and developed racing cars and raced around the world for Mercedes-Benz and lived in Switzerland. And then after his racing career went and developed all sorts of safety things for road cars. I thought, hey, he would be good. But then I thought, I need more fun. If I'm going on holiday with somebody, I need somebody who's fun. Just as we say here, you need a bit of crack. So my choice would be the great Monegasque racing driver, Louis Chiron, who was the great star of the late 20s and the 1930s. And he counts as Formula One because he was still driving well into his middle age, and his last competitive Grand Prix was the 55 Monaco Grand Prix when he was 55 years old. So I would choose him because huge character. He was Monegasque, Monaco born. He started his career as what is referred to as a professional ballroom dancing coach. I think that's a nice way of saying the gigolo. And at the Hotel de Paris, and lived a very interesting and fantastic life that funded his early motor racing.
Wow.
He was a fantastic driver in his time. And probably if the European Championship had started a year or two earlier, he would have been a European champion in Grand Prix motor racing. But yeah, a huge character with some big stories in his life. And Louis Chiron, I can always see him in footage. If I see crowd scenes at Old Grand Prix, I can always see Louis Chiron, even from the back, because he always moved like a dancer. Louis Chiron is geeky fact. If I'm watching old newsreels, there's Louis Chiron walking to his car he's on the balls of his feet. He always moved like a dancer. So he's always easy to spot. So great character with some controversial things in his life as well, beyond how he got started.
Oh, he'd had great stories, wouldn't he?
Great stories. He would know how to get us into all the fine places. He would get us into all the nice hotels and the nice bars. And we'd have some fun. And then maybe after the second bottle of wine, he has some big stories that I could argue with him about. So I think it'd be great fun on a holiday.
Oh, that sounds like a great choice. And just while you were talking about winning a race at 55, do you know what's been the oldest Grand Prix winner in the history of Formula One?
Oh, well, Louis Chiron competed. He didn't win, but the oldest Grand Prix winner would be Fagioli. I'm trying to think how old he was, but one of famously the three Fs who raced for Alfa Romeo in that first season of the Drivers' World Championship in 1950. Farina, Fangio, and Fagioli, and he was an Italian racing driver who was at his peak really in the 1930s and raced for Alfa Romeo and for the Mercedes Grand Prix team in the 1930s in the European Championship, and in his 50s came back as part of the Alfa Romeo team when Alfa Romeo revived their what had been voiturette cars, which now became Formula One cars. When Formula One was written up in 1947, when they returned after the war, he became part of that team and was still there in 1950 when the World Championship started, and won, I think, just one race in that 1950 season. And I believe he's going to be the oldest winner, unless Fernando Alonso hangs around for another decade.
Well, just judging what he said last weekend, that the Barcelona Grand Prix would probably be his last race there, because of course that's every 2 years, so he's not seeing himself racing. You never know, never say never. I love Alonso and Lewis Hamilton and the older guys that are just almost proving the world wrong. You don't need to be 22 to win races. You don't,
Absolutely.
And in surfing, Kelly Slater is another one. He won his last championship tour event 2 days before his 50th birthday. What an athlete. Full respect. Yeah.
I always say as well, it's what's lost when these people retire. I sometimes look at retired Grand Prix drivers on TV or I meet them, and I think to myself, your reaction times have slowed, your body's not what it was, but inside, you know how to make, if Mika Hakkinen could just do it today, Mika Hakkinen is better than any of the rest of them, and there's that sense that that's what's lost when somebody retires. Nico Rosberg's a good example. He talks so well on Sky F1 and he gives some such great insights, which is fantastic. But I look at it and think, I know why you retired. I know why you did it. But just to flick the switch and just to set aside that knowledge and that experience and not do anything with it again, it's a bit of a mind bender for me.
I love Nico Rosberg's commentary. I love how to the point he is as well. He doesn't talk around issues. He says what he means and he's quite direct, and that's really refreshing, because I find a lot of the other commentators are sometimes a bit too diplomatic. It's like, come on, give us an opinion, say what's really happening. But anyway, I suppose that's why there's people like us.
Well, that's true. And I completely agree with you, because I think a lot of coverage now, it's leaking into sort of online coverage from magazines and stuff as well. It's a wee bit too qualified. As you say, it's not to the point enough. And I think some people need to be clearer, ask some big questions, less pandering to people. To me, you shouldn't be meeting a Formula One driver in the pen after they've made a big mistake and come out of race and approach them like, oh dear, what happened? What happened? You should be in there like, what did you do? They aren't your mate.
Yeah.
They aren't there to give a cuddle to. Get stuck in there, find the stories. It's sport.
I mean, at the same time, I can understand that, because I would feel sorry for them. You'd be like, oh, they've had such a terrible race. The poor thing, they must be feeling awful. I know that's how I would feel, but you're probably right. But even just when they're giving commentary, though, just talking, I feel sometimes it's just really vanilla. And I think it's sometimes better when there's a bit of spice, and that's what Nico Rosberg brings to the commentary team, I find.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, Colin Johnston, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. I can't believe we've been talking for so long. I could sit here and chat to you all day. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Di. It's been fantastic. I just love to chat motor racing, and this has been brilliant. Love it. I hope your viewers and listeners enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. Like, how could they not? And if you do want to read more about historic motorsport racing, check out Colin's website, racingdaydreams.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. You can find this podcast on all the good podcast listening apps. Hello, we're on YouTube as well. And thank you for watching if you're tuning in there. We're on all the social media platforms, Away We Go podcast. And yes, again, a huge thanks to Colin Johnston for being so generous with his time and knowledge. Thank you, everybody, for having us in your ears. Until next week, and until lights out.
Are you ready?
It's lights out and away we go.
Away We Go podcast is produced by Dianne Bortoletto.